Now, okay, and we're doing a motion to authorize the absences of two of our committee members. The first would be Ray from Autism Ontario Central West Region, and also Shelley Foster from Voice for Children who are deaf and hard of hearing. They have missed 3 consecutive meetings, but we want to be able to contact them and give them one grace meeting before we come down on them like other place. So if we can have a mover and a seconder for that motion.
Sure.
Thank you, Trustee Clay. Thank you, Trustee Alves. At least we're being compassionate.
Yeah.
And are there any questions or concerns? If we can vote all in favor, then we will approve that motion to authorize the absences of Shelley and Ray. So we are now moving on to the acknowledgement of traditional territory, number 2.
The land upon which we work, live, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Michizagig Anishinaabe, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize the rich pre-contact history and relationships which include the Anishinaabe and the Ongwe-Hongwe.
Since European contact, this land continues to be home to Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As responsible community members, we value the diversity, dignity, and worth of all people.
Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral land
and continues to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms.
We are committed to learning true history to reconcile, make reparations, and fulfill our treaty obligations to the original peoples and our collective responsibilities to the lands, water, animals, and each other for future generations.
And moving on to number 3, the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion that the Special Education Advisory Committee approves the agenda of October 14th? So we have Trustee Alves to move and Trustee Benjamin as the seconder. Are there any questions or additions to the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? And so the agenda is approved for the meeting, and we are on to number 4. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Seeing none, we move on to number 5, which is the approval of the minutes. For those of you who have had a chance to review the minutes of the meeting from September 16th, may I have a motion that the Special Education Advisory Committee approves the minutes of September 16th, 2025. So we are moving, we have a mover and a seconder. Is there any discussion, any additions or questions or concerns, corrections? Wow, this is moving very, very smoothly. All in favor then? Okay, we have approved the minutes from the September 16th, 2025 meeting. Delegations of public questions, none. And so we're moving on to reports from officials and staff. Thank you to our superintendent for coming today because she has a very nasty cold and she still showed up. We appreciate that. So I will pass with you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Good evening, SEAC members. We are pleased to share that the school year is off to a strong and inspiring start. Our highlight has been our annual special education conference, which brought together staff from every school across the system. This level of representation speaks to the commitment and to inclusive education and ensuring that students with special education needs are well supported in every classroom. The conference served as an important opportunity to align our work across schools and roles. Messaging was centered around the department's key priorities, which we shared in the last month, with a particular emphasis on effective classroom implementation and intentional monitoring process. Our goal is to ensure that strategies supporting student success are not only well understood, but embedded in everyday practice. We are excited to continue this work in partnership with SEAC and the broader school community as we remain focused on equitable outcomes and meaningful learning opportunities for all students. Starting in tonight's meeting, I'd like to spotlight the outstanding efforts of different parts of our department on a monthly basis. Tonight, I'd like to highlight the amazing speech and language pathology team, SLP, working under the leadership of Andrea Dewar-Salmon, Julia McBrain, and Annette Samir. As a department, we are continuing a deep commitment in supporting the earliest learners with our Oral Language in Kindergarten Initiative, or OLINK for short. We know that oral language is the foundation to academic achievement and well-being as a key underpinning learning literacy, as it directly impacts our thinking, literacy development, and learning. Oral language is a critical strand in the weaving skills that make up literacy. As we also know, strong literacy skills are pillars to critical thinking, social connection, and the ability to engage meaningfully in learning. Strong oral language skills lay the groundwork for literacy, communication, and confidence across all areas of the curriculum. OLINK is a Tier 1 support that is good for all students and can facilitate the receptive and expressive oral language skills. It provides educators with information and resources to effectively implement some key foundational oral language and communication building strategies. Sources that guided the creation of the Oral Language and Kindergarten Initiative include the Ontario Human Rights Council Right to Read, the Ontario Human Rights Council Dream Delayed, EQAO results, graduation rates, and learning for all. In an unprecedented shift, PDSB speech and language pathologists have met the demand head on in the short time since the beginning of the school year, have already visited almost every single kindergarten class in the board, training educators with the first of 4 foundational oral language skills. Many are starting to train on to the second skill. To date, we have noticed we have had the following visits scheduled. First visits, 740 kindergarten classes. Second visits, first visits focused on stop, look, and listen. 740K classes. Every kindergarten class in the system is complete, with the last one happening Wednesday. Second visits, comment and wait, 600 visits booked. Third visits, which extends grammar, 422 visits booked. And the fourth visit, which is expanding vocabulary, 399 visits booked. The data is supported in the table below. We believe in our educators and want to share learning across the system. With ongoing SLP support, together we can make a positive difference for PDSB students. The pre-survey that more than 400 kindergarten educators have completed indicates a strong interest across educators to learn more about how to notice, name, and support oral language. Here are some specific experts from the pre-survey that highlight educators' learning goals from the visits. They'd like to learn more about how to effectively assess oral language skills and track growth for shorter-term student success. They want more strategies and ideas on how to explicitly teach oral language, and they want ideas for encouraging oral communication and vocabulary development at learning centers. Some of the many benefits of Tier 1 oral language support include de-streaming practices from the first year of kindergarten, communication skills, which support self-regulation, which foundations for reading, receptive and expressive communication and academic success, educators supporting intentional programs for oral language learning through play, SRM support preparing educators to name and notice specific aspects of oral language in meetings with families, communications and speech goals that share greater accuracy with SRM terms. As we increase collaboration, we'll have opportunities for shared learning and partnership, which are developed between the speech and language pathologists and educators. Clear connections between the kindergarten program overall expectations and the grade 1 to 4 language curriculum, strength-based and data-driven report card comments, and meeting students where they are at and effectively addressing their needs. The special educations team did not stop with oral language this year. In partnership with the social emotional learning and well-being team, we've expanded the everyday speech program to every learning hub and selected mainstream classes with 57 schools opting for site-wide licensing. Everyday speech is a social emotional learning tool that builds self-regulation, conflict resolution, mindfulness, and social communication. If OLINK begins with notice and naming oral language skills, then students' well-being begins with noticing and naming emotions in themselves and in others. This easy-to-implement platform enables teachers to use interactive media and curate video playlists to teach essential social skills for all learners. Approximately 1,900 staff now have access, and every student connected to them will benefit. Our SLPs, through collaboration with educators, will continue to enhance this work through their strong consultation model and oral language expertise. While we recognize that there is still important work ahead to fully support exceptional learners across our system, we are proud of the significant progress we have made towards these goals. This progress has been made possible through the dedication and collaboration of our special education team, school leaders, educators, EAs, SEAC members, and our broader community. Together, we're creating a more inclusive and responsive learning environment that better meets the needs of all students. Thank you for your continued partnership and commitment, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Comments or questions? After the applicant.
So I'm wondering how you're incorporating your AAC users in this program? Do you have that plan?
Not here.
Yeah, through you, Chair, I will ask Manager Julia McBride to answer that question.
Hi, Julia. And then I co-manage the speech and language department. We are modeling through noticing. The first lesson, for example, is to stop, look, and listen. It's really all about helping educators understand what communication is, and how it comes in a variety of forms. And that's really the foundation, getting them to stop, look, and listen and see what are the children interested in, what are the students trying to communicate, how are they communicating it. For many children it is through words, spoken words, but of course we're also addressing that we have children, we're stopping and partnering with them and saying, like, well, what other ways are children communicating in your classroom, and whether they're using gestures, proximity, like physical proximity, hand pulling even, right? Like we're helping them to point out and acknowledging that, okay, this student is telling us, what do you think this student is telling us by standing close to this item and looking at us? What do we think the student is telling us by bringing us this picture or using their device? So we are incorporating it in. We're really looking at strategies that can be easily adapted to each student. That's what Tier 1 should be, right? It doesn't matter how you're communicating. The point is to notice it, find, well, where are they communicating? And then how can we, that's the first step. And then with the next strategies, how can we then, get them to the next level and supporting them? Oh, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good.
Yes. Other questions, comments? Wow. Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Some of the needs can be complex, like they can have low vision and then speech language delays. And so then how are you incorporating like the more complex child's needs with the stop, look, and listen? Because that might not be the solution for the teacher and the child.
Mm-hmm. So when you're right, these 4 strategies will not meet the needs of every child, but they will in totality, right? But they will in the initial needs of educators understanding how to support every child in their class. And for those children who have very complex portraits, that's really where our Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports specifically help an individual child with their specific needs. So this initiative is not about supporting individuals necessarily. It's about supporting educators to be better able to support all the children and notice all the differences in the students in their classes as a foundation.
Quick questions or comments, either here or online? Okay, if we have wrapped on that, thank you very much. We would need to have a motion that the superintendent's report be received by the committee house. And if there are no other questions or comments, all in favor? And that report is adopted. Thank you very much. And we move on to 7.2. The SEAC voice in the development of professional learning for school administrators regarding the student review process.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I would like to ask Coordinating Vice Principal Ryan McKeithren to share this report.
Thank you. So we've got a large number of new principals and vice principals in the system. I think around 25 new principals and 50 new vice principals. Our leadership development team considers them new in their first 2 years through a leadership development program called LEAD. And we're going to focus on the student review process at those sessions this year. And the student review process, I've got a slide here just with a quick overview for anybody that's not completely familiar with that process. So At the end, we're going to ask for some feedback from the team here. I've also provided my email address in case anyone wants to think about it and provide feedback later. Next slide.
This is how it wants to us. Happens all the time. There we go.
So the student review process is definitely in alignment with our multi-year strategic plan. It essentially is a collaborative problem solving mechanism that, really focuses on student achievement and well-being, and using student, caregiver, family, and collaborative voice, with the overall goal, of course, of promoting a discrimination-free learning environment for our students. Next slide, please. And this year, with the release of the Dreams to Labor report in the spring, we're emphasizing the importance of a human rights-based approach to the work we're doing with our students. So taking equity and inclusion, but also looking at that legal and sort of moral imperative. Next, please. I'm going to move through a couple of these slides quickly. This is just some of the alignment policy documents that play into the student review process. The most important one would be Accessible P1, which is the policy that guides the student review process, and it's linked at the end of the document. Next, please. So the big idea here, when student review processes center and affirm student portraits, elevate family, caregiver, and multidisciplinary voice, presume competence, and foster collaborative problem solving. They become equity and human rights driven structures that align supports and drive to improve student achievement and well-being. We did a survey with our IARTS and our PSSB staff at the start of the year, just as members that sit in on a lot of student review meetings, especially SRN2s, which we'll talk about a little bit later, looking for some of their input into how we could best support the system with our professional learning this year. One of the highlights was the collaborative piece. They want to see more of a focus on that collaborative problem solving, and that of course includes our PSSP, which is made up of our SLPs, our psych, and our social work teams, but also caregiver, family voice, and where applicable, student voice. So a big focus of the work we're doing with our team right now is how can we use the iterative cycles of the student review process to really honor and collaborate for that student success. And I think to take that one step further, we wanted to gather SEAC's perspective on how schools can better communicate with families about special education support via the student review process. It's such a great mechanism for change because all the people that are working with and for the student are at that table. So again, if there are ideas at the end of the presentation, I'd be happy to take some of them live, and then, or you could feel free to email me.
And through you, Chair, if I may just interject, this has come up at this table often around feedback from families around their inability to access meaningfully the student review meetings. So we really want for your feedback to be, an indication of what you're hearing from families, so that we can make sure that in our teaching of new principals and vice principals that they're hearing the perspective of those families and making the meetings more accessible. Because accessibility is important, and having the ability to share authentic voice is important. And so that's why we brought this to the table today. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Now, I won't read this whole slide, but I'll offer you a minute to read it. And I'll point out a couple of things afterwards. This is sort of a high-level overview of the student review process. There are links to both the operating procedure again there, and also the parents of partnership document. Would anyone like another minute on that side, or?
Well, people are reading. The links in our documents are, we can never go through them from the outside.
Okay. Because they're internal documents, is that right?
Yeah, usually we put them as appendix.
Okay, well, they're an appendix in the report itself.
Is the operating procedure attached as the appendix there? Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, this is, but then in here, there are several links that we don't have access to.
Oh, yes.
Like the letters, those kinds of things.
Yes. Oh, within the, yes.
Within the
Yes,
document, there's.
Oh,
links,
so
yes.
no, sorry. I thought you meant within our report. Understood. Yes. It is an internal.
Next slide, please. So we talked about some of the people that are at the table already. The other section there is where parents might bring in an advocate or a community partner. Next, please. So this chart's small. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is a tool that we use internally that talks about the flow essentially of the student review process, and it's broken up into student review meetings, level 1 and level 2 meetings. We have about 148,000 students who Peel, and around 23,000 of those students are accessing special education supports. So if you're one of those 23,000 students, a lot of the work that's going to happen at the school level is going to be through SRM1 and SRM2. Would have said the most important work that happens in the student review process is what happens in between the meetings.
Yes.
So one of our big focuses this year and on the professional development is the accountability and monitoring. So if in SRM1, for instance, there's a discussion about some strategies that are going to be implemented, how are we ensuring that those strategies are implemented and that the next time we're talking about them isn't at the next SRM? We also talked about the need to implement strategies for a period of time. So we started talking about these cycles, 4 to 6 week cycles, so that again, we're not trying something on Monday and deciding on Tuesday it's not working. When we're still experiencing barriers, that's when we'll then usually have an SRM2. That's where the collaborative team now comes together. So the central staff members, like our individual education resource teachers, our PSSP team is often part of that meeting. Parents and in some cases, advocates or community members are going to be part of that meeting. And we're really, again, trying to problem solve at the school level, first and foremost. If we're seeing, a couple cycles of SRM2s and we're still experiencing challenges, that's when our IRs might then come to our central team to request additional supports. It could be like a transition EAs or RVAs. We've got our central occupational therapists. Now, if we had, 23,000 students accessing special education supports, the amount that are coming to the sort of board level for supports would probably be around 200 a year. And then if we're still experiencing challenges, add additional staff, that's when we might come to a centralized multidisciplinary team meeting. And that's a very small number of students every year. So I guess the point of this is that we're really trying to do the most work at the school with the team that's there. Next, please. And as always, echoing a little bit what they talked about, it is that tiered interventions are super important. These are just some examples that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but please feel free to read over it. Next, please.
I think if I may just jump in here, it's important to note that students receiving tier 3 support still receive tier 1 and tier 2. Yeah. It's not an absence of. So I think that that's sometimes a misunderstanding with families and schools, that if students getting tier 3 support, they should still have access to excellent tier 1 and tier 2 support in their classroom.
Thanks. Thank you. Next, please. So again, these are slides that might be more takeaway slides because there's a lot of details here, but this just walks through the different steps of SRM1s and SRM2s. Again, I'll emphasize that importance of what happens in between the meetings. But the other thing is when we have a teacher bringing a student forward to a student review meeting, we really want them coming with the data, not just a story, right? And with so many new administrators, we feel that it's a good opportunity for them to set tones in their school, that when we're bringing students, that it's really about supports that they're going to use to succeed, that they're coming in with sort of that asset mindset versus a deficit narrative. And next, please. Now, one of the other recommendations that may come out of an SRM is a potential recommendation for an IPRC. So again, if we're exploring a placement outside of their home school, we want to make sure that we've tried tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 supports in the home school first, right? We want to, as much as possible, keep students in their home community and work with the family and the community partners to make them successful in their neighborhood school. Next, please. And next, please. So as Claudine shared earlier, like we've heard from the committee that sometimes families want more information or want to know how they can be more involved. And I think that's one of the main reasons we brought this to the team here tonight. So I'd be more than happy to take feedback now, or again, that's my email address. We'll take feedback. We'll take it anytime, ideally within the next couple of weeks, so that we can use it to action the professional learning that we're developing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Questions and comments? Just
Through you, Chair, a question for Superintendent Scaccato. I'm just wondering if we should email this to the group at SEAC. Here's what I'm afraid of. To people who miss this meeting will miss this and then perhaps feel like consultation in that or miss.
Through you, Chair, we're happy to send the email tomorrow through my assistant of this slide deck and the next
I
one.
know it's a bit unprofessional.
Yeah.
We would typically ask
No,
that, but
that's
if
fine.
we could do that for the committee.
No, I think it's important. There was a lot of data in the deck as well. So if people need some time to review the data and give feedback, but we're happy again. And it doesn't have to relate to necessarily exactly what Ryan shared today, but feedback you're hearing in general about SRMs, we're open to as well, because I know we've talked before. So please feel free to share.
Maybe we'll just put in that caveat like the next 2 weeks, so we can be respectful for time for staff, or maybe even the next week, so that if there is a lot of feedback, you get some time to.
We are planning PL for admin.
And to your point, if anyone that's absent has any questions before providing feedback, I'd be more than happy to set up a meeting to chat about.
Very nice. Okay.
Thanks. Please go ahead.
Few questions. First is during the SRP process when the oh my God, I'm still in work mode. I was going to say clients. Sorry. When the parents get the form, do you find that there is a lot of data that supports that parents are like inputting their feedback in the form and they're coming to the school in these meetings equipped? Like, I'm just wondering, we've talked a lot about like the makeup of our population here at Peel, and like, are they understanding what is being asked? Are they inputting enough that you then can have like a portrait of the student? Because it is still very much paper based, and then they got to input it in and write their comments in. And so I'm just thinking about English as a second language and community.
Through you, Chair. A great question. Thank you. I think these are the types of questions and feedback that we're hoping to gather through this process. I would say from my experience, I've worked in the department for about 10 years, and I've been to SRMs in probably a couple hundred schools. I'd say it varies widely.
Mhm.
Prior to the OP coming out, and I want to say 2021, we used to call these meetings ISRC, if anyone was here, then school review meetings. And parents weren't even intentionally included in that process. So one of the, I think, primary goals of the new OP was to ensure that student voice and parent/caregiver voice was included. And now I think in light of reports like Dreams Delayed from the Human Rights Commission, it's not just voice, but it's also honoring the village experience. And I think we have work to do there. And that's partly
because I'm just wondering, like, with forums like open houses and I don't know, ways that they can then connect with other community members and also learn, not just from you guys, but like other parents, right? Connect them together and let them come face to face and I don't know, have like interpreters and other community members involved so that it makes your jobs easier, but also their jobs easier and they know what to expect and what the expectations are. But I do find that I talk to parents in my children's schools and the form can be a little overwhelming for them. Especially, you know, depending on their background. And so maybe just other avenues for them to be educated on what the form means and what they're sharing and how they can share and learn from others. Might be a good suggestion.
Yeah, through you, Chair, that's a great suggestion. We do offer interpreters whenever necessary.
Yeah.
So that's always available to families, but again, they need to know that, right? And I think that's what you're getting at, is that they need to understand that. And we don't rely on the form only. That's one means of accessing data. Parents can bring, you know, information to the meeting itself. And share that verbally or orally. And often we'll see parents bring other family members or advocates with them that they feel can support their conversation, which we're always open to as well.
And then the second question was around measurement. You know, this post first meeting every 4 to 6 weeks, there's this measurement of, you know, are the criteria successful? Is it working for the child? How is that delivered? Like, who is doing that? And then when we talk about accountability, how are we holding the staff accountable? And then how is it jointly with the parents? Because it's also parents sort of accountability too, right? Like it's what they also put in it with their child too.
Thanks, through you, Chair. Another really great question. And I would say from some of the meetings I've had with administrators and people in the system that there's, again, a variety of ways this is happening. I think we're looking for more system equity because some people are doing a really great job. And I would say that some aren't doing as great of a job. We've heard strategies that some admin are using that I thought could be quite universal and easily implemented, such as our administrators are doing school walkthroughs regularly. That's part of, I think, most expectations of administrators. And just as simple as having clipboards with like, here's the goals, walking that class, how's that going, checking in. So check-ins, meetings with the teacher. I think we're going to hear from the committee some great ideas too, and hopefully I can provide better answers in a future session because that's the work we're doing right now.
Okay. And through you, Chair, just to add on to that part of the session that Jeff and I presented to administrators was exactly on those, what do you do in between SRM 1 and 2 for administrators? So we just presented this and we talked about the power of a walkthrough. Sometimes the clipboard can be intimidating, but you should know at an SRM from your meeting minutes, you know, what goals were implemented and go in regularly to see, is the teacher implementing? So the question was, who's responsible? The educator is responsible for the implementation of the strategies generally. Often they'll have the support of the in-school, you know, the special education teacher who might come and team teach or do some things in addition to, and or if it's an SRM2, there may be some PSSP staff that are responsible for being in there and then they're monitored by the coordinating principals. So there are accountability checks, but to Ryan's point, there are some administrators who regularly walk through and check for implementation. Because we're requiring now, if you come back to SRM2, that the teacher, as Ryan shared in the presentation, not just share a story, but share data. Okay, this is what I tried. Here's how it was successful. Here's where it wasn't successful, right? And so we are increasing the levels of accountability.
I think with so many new administrators, we have a good opportunity to hopefully create more equity in the process of the procedure. Thanks for your questions, everybody.
Trustee Clark?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Okay. If a parent wants, so how much time is there generally between, SRM 1 and 2? And how, if a parent, it's great that we're now creating an avenue for parents to get involved, but that's the second round, right? So is there a way for the parent to expedite to the second round? To SRM2, if they feel that, if they strongly feel, or is there, a strong, reasonable explanation for them not being in, SRM2 or SRM1, sorry.
Through you, Chair. The parent can most definitely be involved in SRM1. And I look to any of my colleagues that want to add on, but I think anytime parent voice is requesting a meeting, that our administrators would be working with the family. But again, I'll look to my colleagues.
Yeah, through you, Chair, that's accurate, as long as, if there's, it's not already addressed, kind of challenges. We can't have repeated meetings weekly for challenges that have already been addressed. So if it's a new concern that hasn't been addressed through the previous meeting, then we would always welcome another meeting. But they do happen on cycles, and SRM2s, especially because they do involve central staff, need to be coordinated, and because they have sometimes 7, 8, 9, 10 schools of responsibility. So it would be based on the fact if it's not an already addressed concern that's being addressed and implemented through change. Change takes time for all of us, and we need time for implementation. So generally it's about 4 to 6 weeks, but between an SRM 1 and 2. And if the strategies are working, we don't need the second meeting, right? We'll, use those sorts of good questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for those answers. So just to clarify, because when I looked at the explanation here for SRM 1, I don't see a parent and or guardian as part of the participants. So maybe I just misheard that they are going to be, the option is available for them. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the option's available. And it's like sometimes an SRM1 could be that initial conversation that teachers having with principal to raise the concern. I would, in most cases, there would be a phone call to the parents. Here, we talked about this today, but it might not have been an intentional meeting because it might have come up through professional dialogue.
Okay, thanks.
Great
answer. Thank you.
Other questions?
Oops.
Okay. Right. Thank you, through you, Chair. At the beginning of the year, I had a call from a new immigrant parent with a child who'd been admitted to kindergarten. Obviously, the child is special and was being treated from the country of origin, and they went to school, and they expected the child to be given all the services that they were used to from back home. It was in kindergarten, junior. So they called me and said, there is a process that you have to follow. And there were a lot of complaints. There's no support given, etc., etc. So when child starts kindergarten, how long does it take? I know the teachers have to identify, or when you admit a kid to say kindergarten, and if they are already special, is there some system whereby you assure the parent, we will take care of it, and they say we have all the documentation. I said, I don't know the process, but please go talk to the principal, talk to the teacher, and they will let you know what, how, and how they'll have a program for the child and what kind of support they will be given. So, like say, beginning of school, how long will it take for the parent to be assured that the child will be taken care of, the program will be in place, etc., etc.
So just for you, sure, you're talking about two different kind of processes now. So one, when we have students who have special education needs that are registered to our board, we do something called a planning for entry. Planning for entry is a form that does just what you said, Trustee Benjamin. It collects all the data, documentation, medical records, etc., to share what supports that child needs. And then part of the planning for entry form is looking at levels of independence. So it comes alongside of a member of our staff going to determine the student independence, level of independence. So, looking at things like toileting, feeding, dressing, those kinds of levels of independence, mobility, and then looking at different levels. And then that's where support is assigned through those two processes that are not SRM 1 and 2s. And parents are integral throughout that entire process. So they're the ones filling out the plan for entry forms. They're the ones during the visit that are scheduling the visits. Sometimes we'll do a visit in a home. Sometimes we'll do a visit in a daycare, in another school, for example. So our team travels and looks at levels of independence. And then what we do is we take that back, and then we would align if they're allocated VA support, that would be done, or if they are in need of an OT referral, for example, to make sure that the physical space is conducive for their physical needs or their sensory needs. We would look at CRT if that's applicable. So all of that would happen, but that does, as you said, take time. We don't have any congregated programs in kindergartens. As you know, we try very hard to focus on models of inclusion, and only when models of inclusion don't prove to be sufficient for that child's learning and independence do we consider placement, which would then happen through the SRM process, if that makes sense. So, parents can expect to come into a new classroom and have existing structures, and our offerings of what we have here in the board are guided by our special education plan and limited to the special education plan. So because they received it in another board or another country would not mean that we could replicate that here. So we're trying to be really clear that what we offer is in alignment with our special education plan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Great.
Jen? Yeah. First question, so you said there's like 23,000 students that are going through the SRM program through the years. Getting services. Do you have any data on the parent participation in the SRM programs or student participation?
Through you, Chair. I did reach out to research to see if we had any data on the student review process, and at this point, the answer is we do not.
Through you, Chair, there's not a mechanism to right now document if parents were in attendance or not. They're always required through the operating procedure to be in attendance, but we can continue with the meeting because the supports are needed without the parent. So there's not a way to document if the parent was there or not, but we can be assured that they were always invited because that's now part of the operating procedure.
Because that is my next question. How are they being invited? And which ways are working? And are we collecting data to try and understand that?
Through you, Chair, generally they're scheduled via phone call and or email and or whatever means of communication is the preferred method. So our information system has a preferred method of communication. So we would try multiple ways for families to get a hold of schools to get a hold of families, generally through either the classroom teacher or the special education teacher.
What are the steps when you can't get when you don't get feedback from them? Do you have sort of a steps for the principals? So I'm trying to think with a parent's point of view now. I work 12-hour shifts. You're leaving phone messages for me. You're not there when I'm working. So what are we doing to make sure that we reach those students? Are we, scheduling meetings at proper times? Are we offering to call them at 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night, or those types of things?
So through you, Chair, we are limited in our ability to host SRMs when our staff are working. Principals would likely go far beyond that, and they do often. So they might have conversations, but hosting an SRM meeting at 6 p.m. at night would not be something that we would be able to do. But we do offer hybrid models of it doesn't have to be in person. It's the preferred method to be in person, just because of what Jazzy brought up, communication, making sure we're clear. But we do offer also hybrid communications, and so we can schedule flexibly throughout the instructional day based on, again, the availability of central staff as an SRM too, but we do not schedule SRMs outside of the instructional day.
Do we communicate with parents outside of the day? Not the SRM, but try and get all of them communicate with them.
Do you have any questions?
I do.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. It's
Okay, keep going.
Okay.
She answered.
All right. Sorry. Yeah, so I guess one thing would be to actually start being able to track, not necessarily whether they came, but whether there was some kind of connection made. right? So were they ever able to reach someone and actually have a conversation, and who came to the restaurant having some sort of, then we start to understand why parents aren't involved. So we're trying to improve parent involvement. So we need to understand why they're not involved. If we don't understand why they're not involved, we can't improve. Thank you, we'll take that back.
It's just a little mark.
Actually, was Chuck, are you finished then, or is it? No, you're not. She's not done. Why don't you just give me a hot way when we're done? You just keep going.
So it would be helpful to be able to see the parent invitation and anything the parent's getting, so we can give feedback on, how that could improve, that kind of thing. So we don't have access to that.
So. Through your chair, Berlin has let me know that the new RISE system will have that built into it, and I appreciated all your feedback. Thank you.
One that came up in between 1 and 2, what communication goes out to the parents? By then.
Through your chair, again, I'd say it varies widely from school to school. Part of this initiative is to create more system equity. In theory, the principal of the school is the leader of the SRM. In some instances, the communication follow-up might be through the classroom teacher, it might be through the in-school special education support staff, or heads of special education in secondary. Even if the family's not at the meeting, would that be, or just the progress?
So even if they're at progress, so we've gone to this meeting, now there's 6 weeks in between. What's happening, not necessarily students can't always tell their parents what's going on, or they won't. So what's happening in that 6 weeks to ensure that communication keeps going, and hey, what are we doing at home to help, that kind of.
Through you, ideally the classroom teacher is making the most contact with the family. Again, we invite your feedback though on how we might improve those processes.
Yeah, I think making them more consistent throughout, or this is what you should do. There should be at least 2 touch points. And these are the kind of things that we want to talk about. And it can't be that specific, it can't be that, but something so that they know what they're supposed to do. Because some teachers probably think, well, I'll just wait till next meeting, and others might be talking to people every day. And again, equity across the system, we need to have at least a baseline of what parents and students should expect. The other thing that I noticed in here, and you did mention it, so I appreciate that, is that student voice in all of this, and them definitely being at the meetings, because they can be there during the school day, and understanding how they feel about everything that's going on and whether it's working.
Thank you.
Okay, trustee Alex.
Thank you, Chair. I was just gonna say, not directly related to SEAC, but I had an experience today. And it spans back about a month. Staff were making an accommodation for a family to reach out to them. Mom had some really tight timeline constraints and could only ever be at like really obscure odd times. One time it was 11, one time it was 3:15, one time it was 2, one time it was 1. Now, unfortunately, the family missed every attempt, but the board made like 8, 9 attempts, and there was like superintendent staff, board staff, teacher, vice principal staff. Sorry, it might not be the case all the time, but they would have better than they can.
And I think that's the key. We need to have what's expected, so that it's not just the one that has the trustee behind them that's getting service kind of thing that everybody's getting. For us, but it does tend to be the squeaky wheel gets grease. We want to make sure everybody's getting that the same kind of level of service.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, that's definitely our goal too. Like that system equity piece, we're serving such a large number of students, the more equitable we are across schools, the better outcomes I would expect we would have for students and families.
Other questions or comments from anyone present here or any of our people online? I would just like to comment that I think overall this process is a mystery to most parents. I'm an informed parent, and I've had to really muscle in to be have a voice in these meetings, and I think that there's a lot of jargon that comes in the invites, because and the other thing to consider is if you're dealing with a child with the neurodiversity, ADHD, it typically is oftentimes a parent also has a similar issue, and there's not a lot, I think it'd be good, first of all, for clear language, if we could just, there's any way to bust out the jargon. That is, it's really pervasive. It's pervasive in the meetings, in the in-person meetings, because I'm at all of them, and I think the parents that I talk to they tend to be really intimidated. Because, you effectively brought into the principals. So I think that, well, that's how a lot of people feel. And if you don't know the system, it can be, they're really intimidated. So I don't, again, any kind of clear language or demystifying, or if there's somebody on staff that's school jargon interpreter, I think. And the other thing I wondered as a question is, what's the age of the student that you're encouraging to attend the meetings? Are you looking at, middle school and up, or are secondary?
Sure. Through you, Chair. I'll look to my colleagues again, but I think where their voice is possible and would have an impact on the decisions being made. And I think trusting the family / caregivers guidance on that piece too. But I would look to my colleagues to comment.
Through you, Chair, yes, it would be dependent on parent guardian input always. Some parents feel like their child's presence is important and they need to understand their exceptionality and have a say in it from an earlier age. And some parents feel that it's not necessary until later on. So we really do rely on the families in that case. There's cultural differences in those cases that we have to be understanding and aware of. So we really do rely on families to help and guide us in that decision making. But remember, we serve students up until 21. So at 18, they are their own caregiver. So we try very hard when possible to always include students at 18, even if they have continued care from parents and families. So we still have them there. Thank you.
So, and I agree with Jen. I think if the tracking data as to how many parents do actually participate is really key. Because I would be really interested to I'm one of those pain in the neck parents. I'm always there, and there is definitely accommodation made for being able to attend online. I know in secondary school require my kids to be there as well, but I do think that kind of consistency is, and when I'm talking to other parents that have kids going through this process, they are by and large pretty intimidated. So if there's anything we can do around that, that's the big.
Share with you last year the learner guide, which included kind of what we thought was very parent-friendly language, and you've given feedback to that. So that's getting ready to be published right now. So that'll be helpful as well. But I agree with a lot of what you said, that we have to be jargon-free, accessible, welcoming, and understanding. The ideal is to have families there. As Ryan said, it's better when we have families there because they know their child best, but we can't always wait for families to be there because we want kids to be serviced. And if families can't be, we have to continue with the meetings as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Through you, Chair, thank you. But I just wanted to share in conversations with some administrators on best practice. One principal shared that when the parent comes in, they say, all these people are here for this meeting, but they're here for every meeting. Because sometimes parents walk in and wonder, why are all these people? Right? This is our committee, we're always here. And you're the most important voice here. So a lot of people are going to have things to say, but at any point, if you don't feel comfortable or if you want to add, you've always got the microphone. I thought that was really, really powerful.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick question. This is a very formal process that gets documented and put into an OSR, I would assume. Is there like an example of what a parent wouldn't go through the SRM process and it would just be a general inquiry? Like at what point does it become like a general concern versus going into an SRM?
For you, that's an excellent question. So, that's why those SRM ones are kind of more informal. So we would say that if you have a question about your child's program or you don't feel like they're getting programming, that would be a conversation with the principal. Right. And then, it might need an inquiry from the principal to say, okay, let me look into that program and see what's happening there, which might lead to an SRM. So, always reaching out informally to a principal is ideal. You'll know we have a new regulation that, principals need to respond to parents within 48 hours, and our board is doing a very good job at, making sure that's happening. But I would say that if it really requires a significant shift, or we're addressing a programming concern that's not being addressed in a tier 1 system, that would lead to more of an SRM. But again, if it's a problem with implementation or a challenge with the educator, that's not an avenue for an SRM. That's a private conversation between the parent and the principal, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
I was just thinking as everyone was talking, I think a great avenue to get reach based on the demographic with a lot of parents would be those student or parent council meetings. I don't know if that's allowed or if there's, you're supposed to be removed from that, but I know the principal attends that. I know there's a ton of different voices that represent the community, and these parents are passionate. Obviously, we would reach out to parents that have concerns and questions, but I think to get like important things like at this time, like in the February committee and in the October one, there was someone representing, or I know that there's a small team of you and a lot of children, a lot of schools, but thinking about avenues, I think that would be a good way to reach a lot of parents and really simplify the ask or the support that you can give them, and say that there is these resources available if your child does have a need, and reach out to, I don't know, Jassy or any of us, or point to the bring up the website. But if there's some way that it could come from you to those parents in those council meetings, I think you have a really deep reach.
Through you, Chair, that's a great idea, Jassy. We can maybe make a slide deck that people could, we can't be at all the council meetings, but not committing to that at all.
Yeah.
But we could certainly create a slide deck that explains the SRP process and how to, like, what they need to do if they need to do that.
Yeah.
That would create consistency too. So that's something we could consider. Thank you.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking of like your calendar of like so many things, but like the ones that like, I get the whole education, safety and training. Sorry, now I'm kind of digressing to a different topic, but there are ones that parents would be very keen on understanding the dates. Like those would then obviously, like there's a calendar, like they meet 10 times a year. Like why not use that avenue? I'm not sure what they.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just to add to this. Okay, so I'm in the PIC committee too. So if you can send it to me, I can send it through the chair and vice chair to all the school councils.
Ryan, can maybe present to next to.
Other comments or questions? Ryan, did you get that? I think you're in charge of the slide deck. You got it.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay.
Nicely.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Are there any other questions? Because this has been very helpful. And, again, as we're talking about participating, we've been able to do that here. And also, rather than just a link, you can actually email Brian as a human. And because we found a lot of people, there's, that could be just went to a general link or a code, we weren't getting a lot of interactivity, but you would actually be emailing Brian, who's doing this work.
Yeah, we could set up a Teams meeting if you want anything. It's valuable, and I think as I was reflecting on some of the comments, we focused on presentation today about the school's process, but an important reminder, like parents aren't feeling like the proper supports are being provided, they can always request that student review meeting too.
Right. Thanks. Well, if we have covered all of the questions, then we need to make a motion to accept this presentation. As per the SEAC agenda. Now I'm ripping and I shouldn't be. So may I have a mover and a seconder, Chelsea and Trustee Clark? And is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor? We are all in favor, and that is accepted. Thank you very much. That was excellent.
Yeah.
And now we're on to 7.3, the Special Education Department Professional Learning Plan 2025.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I would like to ask Coordinating Principal Ursula Slasharczyk to please present this report.
Thank you, for allowing me to sort of, highlight some of the professional learning, that the Spec Ed department has planned for this year. Next slide, please.
I locked myself in, I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody, apologies.
So now we know that's locked.
It's locked, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, good information.
Oh, there we go.
All right, so our professional learning, as all the other things that we do within our department, is aligned and anchored in our board's multi-year strategic plan. Next slide. And highlight, so this is a preliminary list. I did my best to sort of gather as much as I could from the various sort of touch points within our department. And it's responsive to system needs. As Claudine had mentioned, there's a lot of accountability in our professional learning. There's feedback provided in terms of usefulness and practicality. And we have some larger system professional learning and then some smaller group learning. That's sort of part of our larger plan. Next slide. So I've organized, and you've got an appendix in the report that sort of is a list, because there's many acronyms. So I will do my best to. They are written all out in the appendix the first time they're used. I may need to refer back to that myself. But we'll start with some of the larger system leadership focused learning. As mentioned, and you've heard about this already, we had our special education conference. And that was meant for our administrators and our spec ed staff. So spec ed department heads in secondary and in-school support teachers in elementary. We also have safety training and positive behavior intervention plan training for all school teams throughout the system, and that's sort of spread out over the year as well. And that would be sort of a larger school team, including an administrator, our spec ed staff, an educational assistant within the school building. Next slide. We also have some administrator focused learning happening. We have a special education training session for newly appointed principals. And this is sort of part of their lead, which is their mandatory sort of completion of these principles. And that is also part of that mandatory aspect. We also have crisis prevention and intervention training that is geared specifically towards administrators. Next slide. We have professional learning geared towards our educational assistants. And some of the learning, this learning is mainly offered during our professional learning days throughout the school year, and that includes a variety of their mandatory modules, which can range, for example, back care and lifting, how to do certain things properly. There's also opportunities to learn about communication behavior, alternative communication, co-regulation, working with complex students, taking a trauma-informed approach, supporting mental health, executive functioning, and then shifting our mindsets. So that's just a sample of some of the modules and opportunities available to our educational assistants. Next slide. Professional learning for teachers. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but some highlights, the ones that I was able to gather. So we have FASD, ADHD strategies to support students, everyday speech, empower reading. There's a number of different sort of empower sessions. And our corrective reading training, and then the comprehensive literacy and applied behavior analysis. Next slide. And then we have professional learning for our PSSP staff. So these are our psych, social workers, and some of the offerings are non-suicidal self-injury, clinical notes, and then formulation writing. Next slide. And then we have a number of continuous professional learning sessions. So these sort of happen throughout the course of the school year. We have our joint staff meetings. So that would include every 10 days, we check in with our IERTs, who are the individual education resource teachers that report directly to each of the 4 quadrant leads. our CRTs, TNRTs, and that includes us as well. Our TNRTs are transition navigator resource teachers. They also offer system-wide capacity to support transitions for students. That's something that happens throughout the year. For our Learning Hub teachers, there's a focus on instructional strategies and networking sessions. ISSP teachers, which are our elementary spec ed teachers, by quadrant. We offer those sessions as well, or we'll get those up and running soon. Next slide. For continuous learning, our spec ed department heads, so these are in our secondary schools, meet once a month to talk about effective practices, IEP development, etc. Vocational 1 leads as well. We're looking at setting that up shortly. Continuous professional learning for our communication cluster teachers and also our enhanced learning teachers. Next slide. That is it. So that's sort of an overview of some of the sister professional learning that's happening within special education that's guided by us. And I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Questions or comments?
Just question why there is no training on for vision itineraries for low vision, like strategies for staff.
Through your chair, we are starting training this 1 week with Apple to help the itinerants with using their iPads to obviously be able to see the curriculum obviously in front of them and empower students to learn how to use it as well. It's like what we've been doing the last couple of weeks.
Okay. But like for like, because the vision itinerary might be there once a week or once every other week. What about the staff? Like, is the children rover between their home teacher and phys ed and gym and music? I'm thinking like for all staff, and I understand there's a ton of teachers and it can't be all, but at least the primary teacher who's there with the child the majority of the day and learning like tactics and I don't know, color differences or depth, or it doesn't have to be geared towards one type of vision condition. Because I mean, I have like I wear glasses or contacts. Like we, you know, it would benefit not just vision kids, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, through you, Chair, the vision itineraries can and do consult with the educator and the EAs in the classroom to support the students when they're not there. And have resources and work within the team to support the school so that when they're not there, the student is supported.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like from a, like as technology evolves and you have all these accessibility changes with Apple products and you know, like the all of the different screens that a child might use, the teacher would not necessarily be privy to that education. And so it might help having more than just the vision itinerant. And if there's a forum where they're having professional learning days, like I'm happy to hear that, you know, there was a special education conference, but if there's a forum where we can also stitch that type of material into, like, again, like speech language and, you know, tactics like that, I think the constant reinforcement, because it isn't something that is easy to understand and put in practice.
You, Chair, I think that's a great idea. Something that we could absolutely do. So with the vision itinerant team, they are the specialists and have lots of experience and be able to support creating a resource and an opportunity for educators, classroom educators to get that learning as well. Thank you.
So are you saying that we're taking it away for
you, Chair? I'll ask for the principal, Jeff Bertrand, to jump in.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I was just going to add that our CRTs also work very closely with the vision itinerants around that assistive technology piece. So that's not just the itinerant who's responsible for supporting classroom teachers.
But I guess my takeaway is, or my ask is, could we have a constant reinforcement like we do with speech language or ADHD, like could we bring in, I can't remember the School of Blind now, what the name is.
Ross, W. Ross.
W. Ross, sorry,
Right.
W. Ross or someone from CNIB, because we, again, might not be. Like, there's a lot of advancements and there's a lot of changes, and so we might not be privy to some of the changes that are happening. And so it's great, I just think that this is a great avenue for our educators to learn and not wait for, sorry, I forgot what that term is called, Jeff. The CRTs to come in, or wait for the vision itinerants, because again, the teachers and the home teachers are with the child the majority of the time.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
So you talk about accountability in your training. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Thank you, and through you, Chair, we understand that professional development only becomes professional learning when it changes practice. So we offer an ability to have staff who participate make commitments. But those commitments, of course, we can't hold them accountable to, because we're, central staff, but we certainly share that learning with their principals or administrators. But ultimately, we respect and believe in the professional judgment of educators, right? So when we talk about accountability, we give them opportunities to learn. We provide additional means of support, continued support. We hope that they would implement. But again, we don't go into schools and check on the progress if that's been implemented or not. That is the responsibility of the principal or who supervises them.
So have you come up with measures to find out if any of this is working?
Through you, staff, yes. So what we do is depends on what it is, for example. So when we're talking about FASD, for example, we've done extensive training based on feedback. You'll remember a delegation from a little while ago around ADHD and FASD, around if we've seen improved measures in like the number of referrals we're seeking for additional layers of support, which was shared at SRM, coming to central team. So we're taking like data like that. If we're seeing less kind of incidents, it's based on that, but not a lot of hard data. It's more anecdotal.
Are we planning to use the census? Is the census going to give us some information on how we've improved, say, our inclusion and our non-ableist attitude and those types of things? Is there a way to use 5 years ago's report to a census and today's to actually get some information on how the students perceive?
Yeah, through you, Chair, we do, once we get the census data, go through it as a department for questions that are relevant to us, but a lot of them are relevant to us, and look at that data. Definitely.
But have we designed it in a way that we can actually, we asked a question 4 years ago, we're asking the same question today, and we're going to see a difference because we've implemented ABC.
Through you, Chair, I just actually was talking to Jasmine, and that link was actually a link for SEAC to have the questions in advance, because the census doesn't go out. So just as a follow-up, Trustee Ellis, it doesn't go out till November 17th. I know that. Yeah. It's on the website, but we have access to the questions. So what we're going to do is send the census questions to SEAC members tomorrow, so that you all have access to them. If they are the same questions that were asked 5 years ago, I'll have to take that back. Jennifer, I'm not sure of that level of detail of what the census questions are now compared to what they were 5 years ago. I'd have to ask the lead researcher, Lynn Hollingshead, about that. Do you want me to put that on the motion action list?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. We know that 4 years ago and previous years, the inclusion numbers haven't been great for our students with special education. So I would hope that we're implementing these things to hopefully see an improvement in that number from our students. So if we're not designing the census to give us data, that's problematic, right? So each time the census comes out, well, we didn't, the question's not quite right, or the information, there wasn't enough this, there wasn't enough that. So I'm just hoping that now after however many we've done, that we're at a point where we can actually use that data and understand if what we're doing is working, because we keep doing the same things. And what I'm hearing on the ground is that things are not changing as much as you might think they are, or they might look like they should be. So it would be really nice to have some indication that it is getting better for our students, hopefully. No, so the EA professional learning, say there's 10 days worth of learning. How many spots are there for EAs to actually participate in these?
You chair. I can find that out. I don't know off the top of my head, but it does open up to quite a few EAs depending on the topic. Because some of the modules are mandatory to repeat every number of years.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see, like we have, I don't know what it is now, 2,000 EAs, and do half of them able to get a spot? All of them, that kind of thing. Do they get to get into the programs that they want to get into? Are we offering?
I would say the majority of them do, yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then that brings me to, so there's some interesting items here in the educational assistant training. And I'm just wondering why we have them separated out, educational assistant and teacher. Some of these look like for instance, I don't see anything for teachers on the use of AAC, right? But we're teaching EAs, which is great, but teachers need to be aware of these things as well. So just kind of trying to understand why some are for EAs and some are for teachers and why it isn't available to all.
Through you, Chair, when there's professional activity days, often it's a report card writing day, for example, teachers would be engaged in writing report cards. So EAs have a full day of available learning because it's a working day for them. So there is accessibility like around EAs having opportunities that educators wouldn't have as well, often with PL days that are mandated by the ministry. Ministry mandates for educators professional learning. So it's mandated by the ministry what the EA, what educators have to learn, but not for EA. So those are also days where educational assistants would have additional opportunities for learning that would be provided to educators as release.
I understood they maybe can't be offered at the same time, but some of these would be helpful, I think, when I look at my own student and people who've talked to me, for the teachers to have some of this information as well.
Absolutely, and through you, Chair, remember that, our new principal sergeant shared that this is not an exhaustive list. So if there were teachers who required support with AAC, for example, that could be done either through SLP or the CRTs individually, right? So principals have an ability to reach out to centralized staff to build capacity based on the needs of individual students in their school. So we often will have IERTs go and do additional support, SEARTs, and or SLPs who will support in their classroom. So it's not whole class, whole school learning that needs to take place, but perhaps more individualized. So we still offer that. We could never document how often that happens.
Right, I'm just saying, just like John was saying, the more people we educate, the better it is for those students. They walk into a classroom, they don't have to wait until November, December, January for a teacher to get training or to get someone in there. So offering it to more people, in a environment.
Through you, Chair, we have to be honest about the limitations of offering professional learning as well. It comes with the need for teacher release, which is an expensive endeavor. And as you know, as a board, we're under considerable financial strain, and as a board across all provinces of the boards are. And so we have to really be creative in ways that we're doing it. So we do have virtual learning opportunities for teachers and are creating more and more virtual learning. And that's for every department. So the equity department does this, the curriculum department, and there's things that we can do. So if there's needs out there that you think we're not addressing for educators, we're certainly happy to do it virtually, but we can't offer system-wide release for all educators.
This last one. Your continuous learning students joint staff meetings, specifically for the IERTs, special education officers, are they mandatory for all of the members of the IERTs to come join in?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Fantastic. Because this I understand is the key way they're sharing information about the different exceptionalities that they're working with. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does that look like in the meeting? Do they actually discuss specific things that are going on in their schools? Are they?
Yeah. So we do actually run, the 8 of us run the meetings. There's 10 of us that run the meetings, and usually the morning portions of professional learning. So for example, on Friday, we are bringing back the SRM process, digging into that a little more. So anything that would come up sort of in their role in supporting schools, So like I said, the morning is usually professional learning, and then we go into professional learning communities, which we're going to be establishing. So it's really digging into what the system is, right? And they've had input into providing us sort of what things we want to cover.
So if you had an IRT in a school who wasn't an expert in physical disabilities, that's our represents. But there is someone in the meeting that has that expertise. Are you sharing as a group? Or are you sharing?
There is that time. Yeah, absolutely.
And through you, Chair, I'm just gonna ask Coordinating Principal Bertrand to talk a little bit about the ISSP networks and then work that's really done there as well.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. It doesn't directly address Jazzy's question or yours, Jennifer, but we do have secondary department head meetings every month. And then we are starting ISSP network meetings half day every month. And so that gives us the ability to deliver special education, professional learning to folks that are in the school every day, supporting staff that work with children. So even though we might not necessarily have a topic that we deliver to the whole system, if it's something that would benefit our in-school spec ed staff, we have a mechanism to deliver it to them, and then they are in buildings every day working with staff as a resource. And so that is one way we can reduce some of those wait times for students when they do end up in class if the itinerant can't get there right away or not. So we do those kinds of trainings as well.
And through you, Chair, I just wanted to also add that the IERTs are bringing what is needed in professional learning to us. It's not us telling them what they need to do. They're the ones in schools every day. So they're coming to meetings, our joint meetings, and saying, here's where I think, learning needs to happen. If we get a critical mass that says, yeah, that's something that my schools need, this is something my school needs, that's how we're developing professional learning. So we've shifted it from a top-down model to the bottom-up model. So they have a lot of voice in the creation of the professional development happening. Through you, Chair, I'm going to ask Coordinating Principal George Sultanitis to share.
And through you, Chair. So our ERTs have been responsive as well, and they often have office hours. So they do meet bi-weekly to talk about some topics that they feel like, processes around transportation, or sometimes they'd offer an OT to come in and talk about alternative learning environments. So they are responsive, and they do have office hours bi-weekly, and that's being really responsive, and it's a couple of hours every week to build their own capacity, and we often get invited to those meetings as well, and it's fantastic.
Thank you.
So just wanted to, through your chair, just wanted to take things back to the census question. So it is incorrect. The motion action log asked from February that the questions come to the committee beforehand for input. So we could understand, and it's written in the law. We were asked that to inform the committee for the rationale behind the questions so that the committee could provide input. It came as feedback from the committee's criticism of the board's consultation process. And I think that adds the Ms. Knight's comments about if they're the same as last year's, nothing changes. So it's unfortunate, but that was a big miss because we had asked for it in February, but it's okay.
Okay, thank you. We will still send the questions and I will share that feedback. Thank you. Thank you. So,
Trustee Clark and then Trustee Benjamin?
Not much.
Okay, who was first? I'm losing track.
You can go.
Okay. Sorry. I'm back on the motion action.
Okay.
So we've taken a brief journey back to the motion action log with respect to the student census questions. I remember that too. So
I will have them sent tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, they did say I could send them. I just double checked the email. But I will share that feedback that you were looking not for them to be sent in advance, but to not input. The committee was looking.
Yeah,
for.
through
Yes.
chair, to
Yes.
be clear, I put it forward, but I don't want to take credit for it. It was we had gone through a challenging bit of professional development as a committee with the board when it came to feedback. And one of the things that came up was census questions and how we're engaging with our student body, not just SEAC, but even outside of SEAC. And one of the bits of feedback that we had asked for was that if the questions could come to the committee beforehand, the committee could engage in a consultation process to define whether or not there are questions that should be asked. That perhaps aren't being foreseen by the research department through the lens of, equity and the, what have you. So that was a commitment that was made by the board that I don't think we got for one reason or another, but that's okay. But in any event, well, I think we'll receive the questions, but they're already published to the public. They're already there.
Thank you. And through you, is it perhaps that the question itself was not documented properly? Because we have here, Trustee Lucas Elves has asked that the research department share how PDSB has determined what questions should be included in the census and why. And then would like the census survey questions shared at the trustees meeting before being released to families. Is that not documented correctly?
No, it is, but we never got them. Like, we didn't get them in the trustees meeting or this is where we're hearing of them. We didn't get them in advance.
Okay, through you, I'm gonna ask Jasmine to share.
Through the chair, the trustees received the questions via email on September 2nd.
Did we receive them for consultation?
I'll revisit them as
I don't
a
think we did. I don't think we did.
Thank you. I'm understanding what you're saying. I'll take it back.
We can go totally off the agenda.
Yes. You have to, I'm big approver.
Yeah, and we're going back, and you can see I'm kind of going back, because this is a good conversation.
Yeah.
This is the motion action log piece, which is important. So we now have we resolved that for now, so that we can just kind of ponder.
Through you, Chair, I think both Jasmine and I will take it back.
Okay,
Thank you.
and you're okay with that, trustee?
Yeah, and I'm looking at it. It was we got it as that's a question. We'll talk about it.
Okay, all right. So we are going to go back to our current conversation about the special education department professional learning plan. And trustee Clark.
Not a problem. Thank you through you, Chair. Okay, under safety training, positive behavior intervention plan training, it doesn't seem that any of these are mandatory, because I look at the top of the list of special education conference is mandatory. But the training for identity and anti-racism and anti-ableism, anti-aggressive practicing, understanding the data, those things, it doesn't say they're mandatory. I just wanted to make sure that I'm reading that, because it mentions it right at the top for the conference that it's mandatory, right? But that when you scroll down here to safety training, it doesn't specify that it's mandatory. I just want to be sure, since this is special education focus, should have everybody. Like I would argue everybody should have, training on anti bigotry, right? So could I get some clarity on that? Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Thank you. So there are required learnings that happen. We had a professional learning day on October 10th, and safety training happened. Mandatory safety training happened for every educator and actually everyone, almost every staff member throughout the board. So that includes things like the duty to report a child in need of protection. It includes safety and de-escalation training for all staff that was shared by Corey Boyle and his department. So all of that mandatory training did happen. Things like anaphylaxis, that's required training. So all of those required, absolutely, you're correct, mandatory. This is an addition to, so when we're talking about CPI, for example, that's de-escalation training, non-verbal non-physical de-escalation training that happens when the need arises in a school where a child needs that level of support. So or a number of children. So there's both general training and then something that we call student-specific training. If a response is in regard to one student behavior and there's a specific way you need to respond, our team then sends out a team to that school, and that training is mandatory for that staff. But that's done individually for those staff members that are supporting that child. So
great question. Yes, all mandatory. And remember that we're only one department when we have the equity department who does extensive training throughout the board around anti-racism, anti-oppression, anti-ableism, as well as our curriculum department who has different training through the school improvement plan. So good question. Yes, all of that training was required on the October 10th professional review day.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's what I wanted.
Okay, great.
Next, please.
Thank you. So I think this is a really great list of courses and offerings for our educators, our teachers. So thank you for putting that together. I echo Jennifer when it comes to the accountability and making sure that teachers are actually attending and learning from them, because I think that's really important. And given the time too, as well, we always hear that, I don't have enough time in the day to even just go through my learning plan, rather than even just working with special ed kids, children. So having sure they have the time to do that. Something that came through that I just thought of right now was, is there an opportunity to do some training or education for parents within our community? I know before COVID, we used to have like a parent conference. It used to be like one weekend and it would rotate different schools and that kind of stuff, which was great. And I used to attend as a parent all the time. And I think after COVID, it just sort of went away. But if we can have like some sort of education for parents, and especially parents that have children with special needs, learning how to navigate the system, learning how to go through an SRM, or what are the opportunities that are available for them? How do they escalate a problem or anything like that? That just came to my head. So I thought if there's an opportunity where we can educate parents as well, that would be great.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I do think maybe the method of sharing decks at school council around like those big ideas that you're sharing is really important, right? Because we want parents to feel comfortable and safe kind of entering into conversations about their child's learning and being advocates, right, for their children. So yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? People present or anybody who's online? Yeah. Okay. Okay, if we have wrapped up that discussion, then may I have a motion that the special education Department Professional Learning Plan is received as presented. I'm mover and seconder, and Lucia as a seconder. And if there's any further discussion, if seeing none, then all in favor? Thank you very much. That was also really helpful. So we have addressed number 14, the motion action log. So we're now at 8, communications for action received. I did not receive anything. And number 9, chair's request for written questions from committee members. I did not do that. And number 10, reports from representatives on councils associations. We didn't book that for this month, did we?
No, we did not, but we're sorry. Excellent.
Okay. And then 11 questions asked of and by committee members. And I haven't seen anybody. Okay, then we would be moving on to 12 committee member motions for consideration. None are on the table. And then 13 notices of motions and petitions. Wow, I'm just writing those on. So we've touched on, we've discussed the motion action log. Just the LG, you happy with where we're at? Jennifer?
Just on the motion action log, if we can just identify the new motions for this week. There's a few that came out. Yes.
You want them done now, formally now?
Yeah, if we just.
Laura, can you review what we had said we would? Yeah, the census will come back.
Okay.
Why there's
Yeah, we have
some
there was something I was bringing back.
5 years ago, whether they're the same as what was 5
yes,
years ago.
yeah, we have that. There was, I think there was one other thing that you brought that we said we would put on the motion action list.
Remember what it was. That's my answer. And I think you had brought something up about training that you wanted on the motion action log.
Well, yeah, and I think they were alluding to that they have these half-day sessions and bi-weekly. Yeah, I'm okay, but always the EAs, how many spots are available for them?
Oh, yes, that's it. Thank you. That's it. How many spots available for the EA training? Okay, thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
So does that cover the motion action lots? We have been very interactive with that, in the conversation. Trustee Alves, do you have anything else on that?
Just checking something that's due, Superintendent Chaparro.
So we are,
Not so good.
a bit of background research done now.
Okay.
Are you okay?
Yep.
All right. So then we're moving on to adjournment. Thank you very much. It's been, yes. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have one question. It's more of a housekeeping question. Do we have all of the dates booked for our SEAC meetings? Because I know in the past, we usually get them like all in September and they're all in our calendars, like from September, but I haven't seen them come through.
Through you, Chair, we just discussed that earlier. We're gonna have it printed on when we see what topics we're gonna cover, we're gonna put the actual date on the side. But I can ask if legal governance can send out the invitations for the year now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and just
So this is correctly not noted on the motion action log because I raised it in the committee for student curriculum and well-being.
Oh,
But it is related to SEAC. So I'll just bring it up here and inform the committee that I'll add it for myself. When I have a response, I'll bring it back. But we had a presentation where there was a statistic shared. It was for the summer learning choice programs, summer learning programs update for curriculum equity and student well-being. And there was a statistic mentioned in that meeting, 2,000 students identified with special education needs engaged in virtual summer camp experiences. And during that meeting, I asked how many students who self-identified with special education needs participated in person. I just wanted to understand, we had 2,000 virtually, that we had 4,000 in person or 6. I wanted and why so many in person versus so many online. So when I have that information, I will bring it back.
okay. So you're not asking?
No.
Okay,
Sure.
sure. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments before we adjourn? Our online people have been.
Yeah.
I like that you're now pulling in other committees. I feel like we're just very integrating. So there, may I have a motion that the Special Education Advisory Committee adjourns the meeting at, it looks to me to be 8:51. Yeah. And that would be Trustee Benjamin and Trustee Duars. So I assume all are in favor. Thank you very much for coming.